Hey everyone, Life with Pets here. So today is part 2 of the 3-part series, and last week we took a look at the setting up of the tank. We had to move our goldfish tank and make room for this 75 gallon, and so this week we're going to show the design in the tank, and then next week we're going to do the plants and the fish that are going into the tank. So if you haven't seen the other video, I will leave a link to it in the little top iCard in the top right corner. You can go on over and watch that after this video. So when we were setting out the design for this tank, we wanted it to be fairly natural, and we decided that we were going to use the stones that we are very well known for. These white stones that are going in now come from Michael's, and you can get them in like the white colour, and then you can also get them in like a slate grey colour. If I can find a link to them, I will leave it, but if not, they did come from Michael's. The other big slate at the back that you can see, like the big rocks at the back left, they came from a yard out by where we live, where you can just go and pick rocks and pay for them by the pound. So we got those many years ago, and we're just getting around to using them now. And then the piece that you see in the middle came from Petsmart, and the one that you can just about see on the left side, that also came from Petsmart. In fact, we've got both of those on clearance, so we got a really good deal with those. The bridge also came from Michael's, and the light that we're using is a Beamworks LED light. It is 48 inch, and we got that from Amazon. Anything that I'm able to leave links to, I will do that in the description box below if you want to take a look at any of the products that we use. The filter I did cover last week, but just quickly again, is an Aqua Clear 70, and whilst the tank is a 75 gallon, initially, it's going to be very understocked because we're still in the process of quarantining fish and going through that whole process. So the 70 gallon filter will be fine, and eventually long term we do think we probably will get another canister filter because we really do like the Sun canister filter. So I think that that would be a good option for this, but right now the Aqua Clear filter will do the job that we need it to do. So moving on to the design itself, we did do, I think it was 3 layers of these little rocks, and the reason for that is we wanted to make sure that we could give a definite separation between 2 different types of substrate. We've done this in our tanks before, and we've found that it's very effective, so then it makes it very easy to care for. That's one of the biggest questions we get, is how do we keep the tank looking so tidy when we have the 2 different types of substrate? And we just do that by using the wall. It does stay in place. Obviously you do have to be careful when you're doing a water change and when you're siphoning, but as long as you're not going crazy with your siphon and bashing it around the tank, then everything always stays in place. For substrate, we are going to be using something we have never used before, and that is Eco Complete. And this is supposed to be a really good substrate for plants. So we decided that we would be very brave and try something new. I did do a lot of research on it, and I do think that it was a good option. We do usually use the fluval stratum, and I do still highly recommend that. We have had excellent results with that. However, for such a large tank, that would have been very expensive. So this was actually a much cheaper option, and we did decide that we were only going to do a thin layer, and we probably, with the 1 bag, and again I will leave a link to it in the description box below, but with the 1 bag we did get about 1 inch. Now if you were going to be using this substrate just by itself without adding anything on top of it, then you would need a good 2 to 2.5 inches, if not a little bit more, if you're going to be putting plants into it. But we are going to be adding a substrate on top of it, so we got about 1 inch, it might have been 1.5 inches out of this, and that will be enough for what we were wanting to do. The great thing with this substrate is you didn't have to rinse it or wash it. You can use it straight out of the bag. So that for me was a big bonus, because very often washing substrate is very time consuming and can also get very messy if your sink is a good way from your aquarium, which mine is. So this was great that we just didn't have to do that. The second substrate we're using is a black gravel from Topfin, and this is what we use in most of our tanks. We either do the stratum and then top off with the black gravel, or we just use the black gravel. And we found this one to be really good. You do need to wash it, but I have also found that it's not very dirty and dusty, so it doesn't take a great deal of washing before it needs to go into the tank. It is a good quality gravel. We've had no issues with it whatsoever, and it does hold its colouring as well. When you're choosing substrates for your tank, you do need to bear in mind what it is you're wanting to do with the tank. So if you're wanting to put live plants in a tank, then it is better, if at all possible, to use a substrate that will help with plant growth. However, a question I do get asked an awful lot is, can you grow plants in just sand or just gravel? And the answer to that is yes. We actually do that in 2 of our tanks, and we do them in sand, and we get excellent growth in our plants. However, we do use root tabs, and that is very important. If you've got nothing else feeding the plants, if you're not dosing maybe with fertilizer, then you do need to put something in the tank that will actually give them food so that they can grow. The waste that your fish produce, that will also feed your plants, but if you've just got a betta fish tank with 1 fish in, that generally won't be enough. However, if you've got a lot of fish in a tank, then you may get away with just the fish waste being the fertilizer for your plants, but it is still better to give them another source of food that would just help them to grow stronger and healthier. The third substrate is sand, and we use the National Geographic make from Petsmart, and this is our most favourite brand of sand. We use this in several of our tanks, and it is just an excellent substrate. You do have to wash it, however it does come exceptionally clean, so it doesn't require a great deal of washing at all. When we were coming up with this design, we weren't sure if we were going to use sand again this time. However, we did want to get a large group of cories, and they do so much better on sand. So we decided that we wanted a good portion of the tank to be sand, so that that would be better for them. The next video will be showing you the plants that we put in and also the fish. All the fish are not going to be going in at once because we did do quarantine for some fish, and we still have some fish in quarantine, and we are going to be getting a lot more fish, so we've been sort of doing it as a slow process. We have had issues with the fish that we bought. We'd had them in quarantine, and then when we did put them into this tank, then we ended up having a big ick outbreak. It was just an absolute nightmare, and so we actually ended up having to treat this tank. And normally we would do the heat treatment, but we then had issues with the plants because it couldn't stand the heat levels that we needed. They started melting back, so we ended up having to treat with medication. So I did actually video the whole thing, and so after this series is gone out, then in 2 weeks from this video, I will do a video on the ick and how we did take care of it. We are completely ick free now, and it did work. It was also very, very hard on the plants, and we still do have other fish that we've since brought in, and they are now in quarantine as well. And please learn from us and keep your fish in quarantine for a very long time, because we did, I think it was about 2 weeks, and it obviously just wasn't long enough. So this tank has caused us a few headaches, but that's by mistakes that we've made. And hey, that's how you learn, and we have definitely learned from that. So we will be going ahead and doing a much longer quarantine process, so you won't get to see the fish in this tank, all the fish in this tank in part 3, but you will get to see some of the different fish that we've chosen, because we haven't gone for regular community fish. We have gone for a few different types, and the betta fish have accepted them with no problem whatsoever. Okay guys, I'm going to end it here. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.